Hello and welcome to episode 2 of The Wolves Report. The Wolves Report is an independent football podcast bringing you the latest views and opinions on Wolverhampton Wanderers. The podcast wouldn't be complete without a regular guest and team. So, as usual, our regular football expert, BBC WM's weekly football phone-in and Saturday football host, Mr. Daz Hale. How are you, Daz?
Morning. How you doing? You all right?
Really good, thank you. So, right then, let's get straight to it. Leicester 1, Wolves 0. Looking like it was a decent first half, not great, and then Vardy scores. Was it better than we expected?
Well, two things. First of all, I have to come clean straight away. I was at St Andrews with Richard Wilford, so I just got the goal horn going off in my ear, and I was listening to Mike Taylor. I've since watched the entire game back, and I would let's first of all, cards on the table. I would rather us have been awful and got a 0-0 draw because we'd have one more point on the board. But the actual performance overall, I think it was a lot of parallels to draw with the friendly the week before against Celta Vigo. But I thought there were a lot of positives to come from it, Ryan, and you can see that by no means the finished article, which is another conversation as to maybe it should be by now, and maybe we should have the players in that we need by now. But you could feel, I think a lot of Wolves fans, certainly the ones I was speaking to after the game who were phoning up, was like, okay, we've lost, but I'm quite encouraged by what I've seen. Because let's not forget Leicester now, I think, are a club actually that we as Wolverhampton Wanderers aspire to be in all truthfulness. And look what they obviously did in the cup final and then the Community Shield the week before. We shouldn't have lost the game. And so it was a decent performance for my money.
Yeah, frustrated to come out. I mean, I'm not sure if I'd rather been angry if we were rubbish, but we wasn't. I mean, the first half was so-so, but the second half was really good. And let's not forget, looking at that team, Semedo probably starts if he's fit. Johnny starts if he's fit. Bolly and Mascara start if it's probably a back four. And Neto, that's half the outfield probably missing without signing any players. And to still come away frustrated that we didn't get anything is, I mean, you don't get nothing for losing the game. And people say, oh, you know what I mean, you should be... And you should be disappointed. I am disappointed we lost, but I'm more frustrated than disappointed with the performance. And
Podence you can throw in the mix as well. He's another one who would certainly be in and around the first team if he was fit, if he ever gets fit, which is another debate for another day. So yeah, it's encouraging, but Jamie Vardy was the difference, wasn't he? Because that one moment of absolute, it was class, and no one else on the field could probably have scored that goal, and that's the fine margins again, unfortunately.
Yeah, you've got to say, you've got to credit the finish. It was a great ball and a great finish, but this is on to my first point now about that. Should we really be conceding? Should one of your defenders, your three centre-backs, be conceding that opportunity at the near post? For me, I think you have to look at Cody there. I think he has to attack the ball and be stronger. The replay shows he was almost static and seeing the ball and almost backed off and give Vardy the space. Granted, Jamie Vardy is a brilliant poacher. Fair play on the banter for the goal celebration. I'll say that now quickly. I can look back and smile now, but maybe not on the day. But should Cody be doing more? Should he be more aggressive on his near post there and stopping him?
I think it was the movement that did it. And yeah, he should have been. But again, I just think that no other player on the pitch should have scored that. But maybe he was waiting for the ball to come to him. You're right. I don't think he didn't realise that he was going to be nipping in front of him, and maybe he should have been. But I suppose the question is, I mean, look, they're playing a back three. Is that the long-term aim for Bruno Lage? I doubt it. If he plays a back three and he's got Mascara and Bolly in, does Cody get in? Probably. If he's going to play a back four and he's got Bolly and Mascara fit and possibly another centre-back still to come in, then you do wonder again just if Connor Cody's actually going to be playing week in, week out.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, it's hard not to like Connor Cody, and you have to acknowledge his achievements at Wolves and the way he's captained the club to there. But if the club progress with the back four, it looks tough for him. I mean, he made some great last-ditch tackles. Unfortunately, a couple of them were recovering from his own mistakes. Now, this isn't. I don't want to criticise him because he wasn't the only one that was quiet. But it does worry me with Cody. And where does he go? What do we do? I don't know. But for me, it's a concern. Hopefully, it'll be a back four as soon as we get another centre back. I mean, from what we've seen from Mascara, he looks the business already. So you'd have to assume if there was a 2, would you play him and Bolly? I think you would. And what that allows us to do then is to have a number 10 in the side, as you mentioned, with Podence or a Neto if he's fitter further down the line. So, but let's go on to a positive and not get stuck into Cody too much. Max Kilman, what performance? His best performance in a Wolves shirt?
Yes. And it was very frustrating at the end of last season when he couldn't get in the team. And again, Willy Bolly again was injured. We were conceding so many goals, and from crosses, high crosses, and everyone just kept saying, "Oh well, Kilman's face doesn't fit. He'll be going in the summer." That tended to be the narrative. He's got every attribute going for me, and the fact that he's left-footed. He's athletic. He reads the game well. He's got a really good touch, and we won't talk about his previous incarnation in the futsal because that always gets on. He's got everything, and I think he's only going to get better. And it was interesting, wasn't it, as well? Again, in a change of philosophy from last season, he and Cody actually were up there in the last 10 minutes. I mean, have you ever seen Max Kilman cross the halfway line before in open play? So that shows you as well. He nearly scored a couple of goals. So again, I mean, he's got a big part to play for me in the future. I mean, he can't play at fullback, which they tried to get him to do before in emergency, because obviously we got through about 8 different left backs last season. But for me, if you're having a 23, 24-man squad, then he is an integral part of it. Whether he's first pick every week remains to be seen. But I think he's only going to get better and better and better.
I think that performance does. I mean, I've always liked Kilman, but I've never been really sure. I haven't really seen enough. But to be the standout defender and almost stop Leicester from scoring in that game, and the way he went on that charging run in the second half, cut inside. Yeah. I mean, it says a lot, really. He's left-footed, but he's comfortable playing on the right as well. Yeah. I'm not sure I'd want Sace on the right-hand side, but to be your best centre-back out of those 3, maybe someone would say that's not an achievement because they don't rate them, but you have to credit Kilman. He was composed on the ball. He was strong. I don't think he did a lot wrong. I mean, I would say one thing, he probably wasn't aggressive enough in terms of attacking the ball sometimes, in terms of like corners and crosses, and he was unlucky with that chance, but I think he's really played himself into contention. I mean, could he play in a back 4 as a left-sided centre-back? I'm guessing if he keeps performing like that, we'll find out.
Yeah, so I very much involve him. I think he's got a big part to play, and I'm glad he's still at the club. But that whole thing about being aggressive, and that's still, it was the problem last season. I'm hoping if he can ever get properly fit, Bolly will help solve that problem. I agree about Mosquera, although again we've got to just qualify that by saying he looked good against Coventry and Stoke and whoever it was. You know what I mean? So he hasn't played in a Premier League game yet. It was just a completely different ball game. But he's got the physique, and by all accounts, I mean he's got the hunger, hasn't he? He's got the desire. He'd run through brick walls. So maybe that might solve that problem. But I still think that is where Wolves have got to look at really sorting out the fullback positions. And then I'm hoping this goalkeeper will be one who's not so much of a line goalkeeper either, and someone who'll actually come out and help them out by coming for crosses. Because as good as Rui Patricio is, he's going to come out and come for crosses, which I think we probably needed last season.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to what you said about the aggression, if there was one criticism under Nuno, I mean, don't get me wrong, fantastic. The team were often seen as a little bit nice and maybe a little bit naive sometimes, when other teams will be fully using the dark arts, going down. I mean, on the game on Saturday, Wolves were getting on top of the game twice, and 2 Leicester players went down to slow up the play. Now, I'm not saying those players weren't injured. I wouldn't ever dream of accusing anyone of any gamesmanship, but Wolves were starting to really press the button. Leicester have an injury, it breaks the play down. It's things like that that Wolves need to be more savvy with. Plus the aggression. Yeah, you've got to be more cute. And like you said, the aggression, Mosquera, he wants it. That guy wants to defend. He wants to be aggressive. So, yeah, looking forward.
So you're looking, but now, first of all, I've got to ask you, by the way, because I was at St Andrews and I watched the whole thing back on the telly, you were in the away end, weren't you?
Absolutely.
Tell me what that was like, because it was on the TV, it was just like, wow. I'd so wish I'd been in the away end.
Yeah, it's making me smile and give me goosebumps thinking about it. It was so good to be back. And as I said on Twitter a few times, as much as I love Wolves, it's not just about the 90 minutes. It's about the journey, the trip with your mates, the old faces, a couple of beers, the train trip, the banter, do you know what I mean? The camaraderie, the tribal feel, the away end gives you the noise, the togetherness, and that was back, and it was great. I mean, I think the majority of the fans have said it was a good atmosphere. Some weren't so sure, but I thought it was great from start to finish. I mean, it shows how unfit I am. I stood up for 90 minutes and I ached all over, and that's the stress. But I mean, the amount of chances it was like that, but it was great to be back, and some familiar faces. There was some proper bromance man hugs from people I hadn't seen for a long time, and good to see those faces and back again. So.
Football's got its soul back.
Absolutely, absolutely,
and soul back,
and absolutely. And I know I talked about the Vardy stuff earlier on, but that's what it's all about. You know what I mean? Sort of a little bit of needle with the opposing fans and a bit of banter. I don't mind that, and it was so good to be back. Familiar faces. The only disappointment, well, the only frustration with the result, but being back, Daz, was so good, and I can't wait to get to Molineux next Sunday.
There was one other disappointment. My little boy wants to know what's happened to the gold socks, because why are they wearing black socks? Did you notice? You know, they've got the gold socks with the Wolves head on, which they've been like, they wore black socks, and he wants to know why. I'm going to ask Ryan, because Ryan will know everything.
Oh, he's stung me with a really good question. Now, to be honest, I'm like, I didn't notice, but I'm sure there'll be a reason. It can't be a referee clash or something like that. And it's do they think it clashes with dark blue socks? I don't know. Surely not.
He was gutted because that's his favourite bit of the kit.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have the answer. Let you down.
Disappointed.
Sorry.
You have let me down.
I'm sorry. Right then. One of the other game's positives, well, particularly for me, Adama Traore. Now, I know he frustrated a lot of people. And there's no doubt he should have done better with some of the chances he has. But just wanted to quick out. I don't know if people have read this. It's an interesting article by Adam Bate that writes for Sky Sports. He said Adama's expected goals of 0.81 for this game was higher than any other game he'd had under his predecessor Nuno. So basically, Adama's getting in great chances and should have scored. And that's from one game. We're getting more out of him, in theory, than Nuno ever had, including the game at Man City where he scored two.
So frustrating. So frustrating. And again, in the phoning after the final whistle, some people saying, you know, if we get offered a decent fee for him, take it. And in fairness, that's probably the situation with most of the team, that if somebody does still now, between now and August 31st, put a lot of money down for a player, then they probably will have to seriously consider it. I had a full head of hair before Adama Traore came to Molineux, Ryan. Difficult to believe.
He wasn't at Molineux in 1972, Daz.
But again, see, my paranoia, and the amount of times last season, I was probably, even when we couldn't go, and I was probably even texting you, calling him everything under the sun at the end of a game. My paranoia is, everybody knows. Now, I still think that whenever he gets the ball, more than any other player in that Wolves team, it's this moment, isn't that? And it's the one about getting you up out your chair when he gets the ball. It's that close. And it's probably been that close for a long, long time, since probably long before he came to Wolves. The thing is, my frustration, my paranoia is that if somebody comes in, offers us money for him, and we sell him, he's going to become that player we know he can become. And we'll be like, you know, it's like every time Jota scores for Liverpool, you're thinking, oh, God. You know that he's that close now to becoming, well, he's world class without over-egging it. There's no other player like him in the world. He's such a unique player, but which is why it's so frustrating, because it's the fine margins. Now, is he ever going to fulfill that potential? We don't know. But the galling thing would be if we've had him and we've coached him, and Nuno did coach him, and you can see it, as you mentioned, Bruno as well, and maybe the positions he's taking up now is slightly different, playing off the shoulder and trying to go through. If we sell him and then he turns into that player, it's going to be extremely galling, isn't it?
Yeah, that'd be tough to swallow. And like you say, Daz, I mean, we all know about Adama Traore, and he's that one player. I mean, I genuinely believe if Wolves hadn't have had him last season, he'd have been out with Raul, we'd have been in trouble next year. It'd have been close to being big trouble. The amount of times he saved us. I mean, it took him a while to adjust to being without Raul, because Raul brought the best out in him. But I've got to be honest, on Saturday, I mean, I was frustrated, but he was so good. Leicester were petrified of him. When I mean, I haven't really. I mean, we saw it a few times at Man City when he got the goals, but when Wolves won the ball high up and he timed his run and Joe put him through, and he just couldn't open up his body enough. We're talking like 4 or 5 inches, and Wolves are winning 1-0, and then literally go the other end and Leicester score, and that's just typical of football. But
yeah, well, he should have scored. I mean, he should have hit the target. But the fact is, again, there's no. He was, when we know it because we watch him a lot. It's so frustrating, but on his day, he's unplayable. And can he find the consistency? Can he? I don't think it's an intelligence thing. I don't think it's that he doesn't understand the game, because I think it's actually, if you look at the other side of his game, he's certainly learned a lot on the defensive side of it and the stuff he does off the ball now. It's just that is he gonna now mature into the finished article? And that's the question. So, but I'd rather have him playing for us than against us, bottom line.
The worry for me, Daz, is that if Wolves do sell him, I think in the games he was missed, and when he was subbed early on against Man United, I think he got injured early on in that game.
Yeah,
the difference in the team is enormous. There is the threat from going from Wolves could be a danger any break. Wolves are hardly a danger, and I know we've got Podence coming back, as you said, and Neto hopefully comes back the same, and Trincao, but we'll talk about him in a minute. He's such an important player, and I just hope we hold on, because I genuinely believe when Wolves do switch to a back four, which I think they do, they will, and they play with a number 10, that's going to free up Adama even more. Then he's going to have the opportunity. And what I did like as well, quite a lot of the time, he didn't track back a lot. I'm not saying that, and that was clearly an instruction. And quite often he was next to Raul, and I thought that was really intelligent. And that's how he got his opportunities to burst through. So hopefully, I mean, if he has a few quiet games at the start of the season and we lose some games we expect to that, you know what, for the transfer window, that might be good news for Wolves, because get this guy in an attacking 4-2-3-1 system, teams are going to be in trouble.
The other side of it, and two things there, Raul and Traore, the season before, look at the amount of goals he made for him. We didn't have him last season, and no one was getting anywhere. I mean, like William Jose was still having his bloody packed lunch on the 18-yard line whenever Traore got anywhere. Now, I suppose a lot of it will come to, and I do not know what's going on behind the scenes regarding contract negotiations. Now, if he's prepared to sign a new deal, that's good, because it would ultimately mean if they do sell him eventually further down the line, they'll get more money for him. But if he doesn't want to, and if somebody does come in for him between now and the end of August, they've got a big decision to make, haven't they? But again, that's further down the line. And I think amongst all the frustration that there's been, and I share it, because like everybody else, I'm always asking questions like you are and checking my phone every 5 minutes to see, on Wolves transfer and all this. Frustrating as it's been, I think we've also got to say so far, and it is so far, we haven't lost the crown jewels. We haven't lost Traore. We haven't lost Neves, because there's been a lot of talk all summer that he was going here, there and everywhere. And 2 weeks and the day to go to the window closes, they're both still Wolves players and both in the first team. So we've got to be pleased about that.
And neither of them looked like they weren't giving it anything but everything on Saturday. They were both fully into that. And if we could keep them, as we're saying, we've been saying this for 18 months, get a centre-back and a more mobile centre midfielder to play alongside Neves. Well, I genuinely believe Wolves are two really good players off having a solid top half team. Yeah. But we've known that for a while.
It's the spine. It's the spine that they need to. Now, Bruno Lage knows that. He said it publicly, unlike previous managers. He's actually named how many players he wants, and he's saying trust Jeff, which is very interesting. Whether he genuinely does trust Jeff, or whether it's his way of saying, well, I've put it out there now, so you better. But I mean, if you hear anything, there's been loads going on all summer. And as they said when they put out those videos at the end of last season, those excellent Johnny Phillips videos, they said they expected a lot of the business to be done at the end of the window, which is bloody frustrating. But it's the reality. Look at Harry Kane, still like getting COVID and not getting COVID, and he's still where he is. In real terms, there haven't actually been the market itself hasn't actually exploded yet. So I think we're going to get this domino effect towards the end of the campaign. And with Wolves being in the situation that they are in, and it's not a lack of ambition, it's they've got both hands tied behind their back, and that's not an excuse. That's a fact by UEFA, because if they contravene this, they could end up getting a transfer embargo. That's the worst case scenario. Then they really would be up the creek. So obviously got Catroni off the wage bill again. We're expecting Mur to go. We're expecting Otasoe to go. I think a lot of it will be down to getting loans with an obligation to buy in 12 months, where all being well, the handcuffs will be off.
Try before you buy.
Yeah, and they've done it so often in the past, haven't they? I mean, him has been like the ideal one. So I'm guessing at the moment there's a lot of negotiations going on with clubs, just, you know, and come the 31st of August or the 1st of September, if they haven't brought the players in that he wants, then I think by all means, we'll all be on here and on BBC Radio WM, and we'll say, well, what the hell have you been doing? But at the moment, the jury has got to be out. But the biggest disappointments, and I understand why, it's not just Wolves, but the biggest disappointments is that we haven't got them in already. And I know a lot of people have been using Villa as the yardstick, and Villa have been very, very cute in the fact that they knew Grealish was going, and so they bought the replacements, which they've admitted before they sold him. Because if you've got Danny Ings for 25 million now, if you phone up the day after Grealish is gone, he's 35 million, because you've got. But if we talk about ambition again, well, actually, as it stands, Villa's net spend is, well, I think they haven't spent any money this summer in real terms. I think they've probably got another 10 or 15 million in the, you know, from the Grealish transfer. So they've just been very clever, but it's not like they've been splashing the cash, and Wolves haven't, because I know people use them as a bit of a yardstick. But it's just about getting through this summer, getting the players we want, and then hopefully next summer, when all being well, all of these restrictions will be away, then they might be able to hopefully push on and you know, be a little bit more proactive in the transfer market.
I mean, it's interesting what you say there regarding what Bruno said about Jeff. And I know we've probably come up short a couple of times in windows before. Well, the last couple of windows. I mean, the transfer window we got promoted, Matinho, Patricio, Raul, what a window that was. So, I mean, they set the bar really, really high then, but there was some cute business there as well. So, and under Jeff's and Fosun's guidance, Wolves have had the best few years I've experienced in my life watching Wolves. So, really, we probably have to trust them. We don't have a choice anyway, but really, you know what? They have provided us with the best times, certainly in my lifetime, probably yours as well, watching Wolves. Yeah. So,
I mean, probably mine. I'm not that old. I remember 1980. 1980 was a good year. But,
I was one, Daz. So you've seen him win a trophy, though. So in comparison, though, in terms of the squad and the European tour, the last few seasons were incredible. So we have to give Fosun and Jeff credit for that and trust them, because the club have said the window, they'll do their business late. The managers either genuinely believes it or he's leaning on them. So I don't think we've got any reason not to trust them. So talking about new signings, what did you make of Trincao?
We saw flashes, didn't we? I mean, you've got to remember again that for him, the intensity of the league will be a bit of a culture shock, because again, he hasn't really done that much in the pre-season friendlies, but he's an intelligent footballer. His movement's good, and I just think the more he plays, and the more he plays with these players, he's just going to get better and better. And there was just a lot of nearly moments with him, weren't there? But it was just his little touches here and there.
Yeah, you can see.
And I think he's thinking a lot of the time, maybe one or two passes further ahead than some of the other players were as well. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I really like what I saw. He's not someone that's going to be a Dharma-esque and flying through people, but he's pure, isn't he? His touch and his intelligence and the way he caresses a ball and passes it and moves it, it's all very, very natural. It just looks easy for him. And as much as Hoover gives Wolves lots of energy, and I thought defensively Hoover did reasonably decent on Saturday. Going forward, I was a little bit disappointed. I mean, but I know he didn't. Semedo hasn't really won everyone over, but when he's in the side, I think we'll see a lot more from Trincao, because Semedo, the way he wants to overlap and get forward, I think there's a partnership there. I think there's a really exciting partnership.
Well, I'm guessing they probably know each other quite well anyway, I would have thought, from Barca. So you'd imagine that there's already a little bit of understanding there. I would like to imagine. I mean, it's interesting how he's playing him on the right and Traore on the left at the moment as well, like the inverted wingers thing. Francisco Trinco swapped the new camp for the South Bank. The laddies, do you like
Da,
that
da,
one?
da, da.
Yeah, do you like that one?
It's all right, Daz. We'll do a full version later. In terms of debuts, I thought it was good. I thought he was pure. I think he'll benefit from Semedo.
Yeah.
He just looks a natural footballer, and I think as well he'll be someone else that when Wolves do play forward at the back, and there's a number 10, someone there's little smart movements, 1-2s running in behind. He's another player who I think will benefit from Wolves playing more pure and attacking football. So
and ultimately that's the aim. He wants to be aggressive. He wants to be on the front foot. And there's just a couple of things again that caught my eye. That a lot of people said, "Oh, it was just the same sort of stuff as under." Well, it wasn't, because I know at the moment he's playing this back three probably because personnel and who's available to him at the moment probably dictates that, and he's just looked at it and thought, well, this is the way I can get the best out of what I've got at my disposal at the moment. They played a much higher line, which was interesting, especially with the pace they were up against. So it's almost going back to the old Tony Adams offside trap thing, which is interesting. But I just thought they were much braver with, and ultimately especially in the second half, there were more and more players. It wasn't uncommon to see 6 or 7 players going forward. And that wasn't happening. It was not happening, certainly last season. And it didn't. They always say fortune favours the brave. Well, it didn't on Saturday. But I think that it's going to be front foot football. It's going to be aggressive football. It's probably going to be played at a higher tempo than we've probably been used to as well. Now, obviously, the next 2 fixtures don't help either. And if I can get anything out of either of those 2, great. It's just, again, the crying shame, and I understand it, is that we haven't got players who would like to think we'll have here by the 31st of August here now. Because it's almost, you're not writing the first 3 games off, because you should never do that. But it's just a little bit frustrating that we haven't got the full quota of players before we take on Spurs and before we take on Manchester United.
Yeah. I definitely sort of echo that frustration that not having the players in place. But on a positive, I went to Leicester. I mean, maybe because the last 6 months of football, I'd forgotten what Wolves are capable of. I'm not saying they were brilliant on Saturday, but there were signs of, well, actually, there's some really good players here that can play football. And we hadn't really seen that since like Christmas time at Wolves. So, you know what? I was like pleasantly surprised by what he'd done, allowing some of the players a bit more freedom to play some football. So, and you know what, Daz? If those players come in and they're the correct players and they improve the team and allow us, it would have been worth the wait. I'd rather...
Yeah.
So if we have to, you know what I mean, suck it up a little bit.
The right player, not just any old player.
If you have to suck it up a little bit now, Jeff and Fosun don't strike me as people that will sign someone just to appease the fans. They want the exact right person.
No, they won't. Absolutely, they won't. Now, again, it's a couple of other things. I know Dendoncker didn't start on Saturday. I'm one of those who's reluctantly thought that Moutinho's legs had gone, yet he had a decent summer. I thought he was okay on Sunday. And you just wonder, with the likes of Moutinho, with Dendoncker, and to a degree Neves as well, and Traore, were they just knackered? We'd had a 2-year season and all the other stuff that was going on in and around, like not being able to see family members and all this. Maybe they'll come back refreshed. And I mean, even Conor Cody had touched upon it, didn't he, in an interview the other week, that maybe things have just got a little bit stale as well behind the scenes. So we may see more from these players, because let's face it, Dendoncker had an absolute terrible season. We've forgotten, actually, he's a decent player, but he was terrible last year. He was treading in treacle, wasn't he, for most of the campaign?
Yeah, I think with Dendoncker, we've got to remember as well, you don't start a lot of games for Belgium in the Euros. If you're a rubbish footballer, that is a team littered with talent. You don't start for them if you aren't a good player. Now, I feel a little bit sorry for him. I think the whole team, as the last 6 months went on at Molineux, it became more about not
self-preservation.
Losing. It became more about not losing than winning. And then Neves become more defensive, Dendoncker more defensive. So these players, not that Dendoncker's a flair player anyway, but what little opportunity he had to express himself, any of these players, it was wrung out of them. It was do not lose, and if we can win, we'll try and win. But
it was interesting to see how Gibbs White was involved again as well. So again, a lot of us thought that, and he may still go out on loan somewhere. A lot of us thought he'd be on his way in the summer, but it feels as, and I don't know how you felt, Ryan, towards the end of last season when he came in again, and obviously got his goal. He actually just seemed a little bit more like the player we were hoping he was going to be. But again, is that just a thing about take the handbrake off, take risks, and stop playing safety first football? Because I think a lot of them, him included, perhaps just lost their way a little bit. But it feels like it's a new start for him as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've been critical of Morgan Gibbs-White a lot of times because there is clearly a very, very talented footballer there. I mean, there's no question his ability. I know there was rumours of some things going on and off. I'm not sure if he had the right attitude at training or whatever. I don't know. Those rumours were unconfirmed. But in terms of his talent, there's a player there. Now, for me, I wouldn't play him wide. If Wolves play with a number 10 and there's Neto or Podence, he's competition for the number 10.
Pick a pass, can't he?
Yeah, I don't want to see him wide because I don't think he's got the legs to go past anybody there. You need someone who's a little bit more direct in this kind of setup. But has he got a future at Wolves? Well,
I think it's up to him now.
Yeah, if Wolves play with a number 10 and he's surrounded with Trincao and Adama and Raul and Podence and Neto and players like that, it will bring the best out of flair footballers because those players will make you look good and you will make them look good. So, like you said, Daz, it's up to him now.
We need a solid foundation. We still haven't got it at the moment. You've mentioned the players who are injured. You've mentioned the fact that we probably do still need those centre-back, centre-mid. And we do desperately need another new centre-forward.
Yeah, can't rely on Raul.
Well, you can't. Well, look what happened last season. And we're still in that same situation. We're in actually exactly the same situation we were in this time last year. We've got at our disposal, except the 17-year-old kid's now 18 or whatever he is. He's not ready. And they're looking at it, but then Origi's been mentioned again, who I like. He can play right across the front three, and he's got pace, and he's quite a humble sort of person as well. I think he'd fit in quite well with the group. But whoever they're going for, they need to make sure that they've got someone in as cover, as competition as well for Raul. Otherwise, that would be bordering on the negligent, which I think it was 12 months ago. They've been playing Russian roulette for a long, long time in that department. I mean, they may decide to keep Rafa Mir, but again, Jose looked good in that league, didn't he? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's completely different.
It's a different style of football now.
Yeah.
Rafa Mir, from the couple of friendlies I saw him in, and from his time at Forest, if you'd have said to me 2 years down the line, he's going to go into Atletico Madrid, who've just won the league. They're going to get about 15 million and potentially up to 20 million with add-ons. I'd have rolled on the floor laughing. For me, we sell him. I think Wolves are playing a game of poker. They're trying to get a couple more million out.
Yeah,
I'd be really surprised if he stays. Really, really surprised. But just going back to what you said, we desperately need competition for Raul. Obviously, in this window, after what's been said, the noises from the club about the late transfer business, what the manager said, if Wolves didn't have another forward, a centre midfielder and a centre back come the end of the transfer window, I'd be really surprised.
And then we let rip.
Absolutely.
And it's difficult. It's difficult at the moment. I say on the phone in every night because it's like as we are now, and things can change like that. I think it could be a late night for us all on the 31st. It's normally transfer deadline day or Tuesday, as it's known in Wolverhampton. I think it's going to be different this time. But I think the other thing as well that I think I may have mentioned this last time is for all of the frustration, and I get it and I share it because I feel it as well. But it's difficult to detach yourself and look at the actual cold, hard facts, which is what they're having to work in about the restrictions that we're under. And that ain't an invention. That isn't an excuse. That's a fact. You can't get away from that's a fact. Despite everything that happened, despite the pandemic, despite the injury crisis, finishing 13th in the Premier League was not acceptable for these owners. Now, if they'd have just said, right, another year for Nuno, there'd have been a few people muttering, but most people would have gone, yeah, fair enough. It's been a really tough couple of years. No. They weren't happy with what they saw. They weren't happy with what was going on. They think it needs a shake-up. And that's because they're ambitious. They're not trying to stand still. They're not trying to tread water. They're trying to move forward. Now, have they made mistakes? Yes, clearly. And Ryan, the much maligned, by us again, as much as anyone else, the much maligned Kevin Thelwell hasn't been replaced. And I don't think, well, they haven't replaced Laurie Dalrymple. And I know that they're doing it differently these days, but we haven't had a decent transfer window since both of those went. So this is now a huge moment in the next 5 years of Wolverhampton Wanderers. They've been here 5 years, and it's well documented of how well they've done, and they have, and it's been incredible. But to move forward again the next 5 years, they've got to get the next 14, 15 days right for me.
As yeah, I 100% agree. Now, I mean, you read in places that football, and it does, teams come in cycles 2, 3, 4 years. And I think Nuno leaving, and the board could see that we were coming to the end of a cycle. So
yeah,
I don't believe that Bruno is going to come in and not have what he was being promised.
The tools to do the job.
Yeah. I don't believe that. Now, he was talked about. I mean, there was talk of him going to Villa 12 months ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, Bruno, and other clubs. But he's held off, and I genuinely believe that he was always Wolves' next manager, regardless of what anyone says. I'm confident he was set up for that. Now, if he's been holding off at the jobs, he's not going to come here and have to deal with the scraps. I'm confident they'll back him. Now, it doesn't have to be necessarily a household name, and we've seen that. As long as he's backed and we have quality additions, I do not mind. It doesn't have to be a name. Do they improve the team? That's what I mean. For centre midfield and centre back, that's important. And what you said about Raul, it's not necessarily has to be better than Raul, because that costs a lot of money, but someone that can come on and do a good to adequate job, competition, and also so we can protect him. That's absolutely key for me. And I'm confident those things will happen.
Yeah. And the thing is as well, I say time will tell, won't it, ultimately? And we'll discover more over the next 3 weeks or so. But the mood's good. And I think that, again, towards the end of last season, I think there's probably a few, I think it had gone stale, and I think a few of the players were beginning to just lose a little bit of faith, and they weren't enjoying their football, and I think they were tired as well. And again, all professional footballer, no human being, elite athlete who'd been playing at that level non-stop pretty much for 2 years, a lot of them as well being away from loved ones. Don't care how much money you're on or not on. That wears
We're all humans.
Down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that wears you down. And so it's a new start for them. And I feel quite optimistic. And I don't want to say, oh, we'll do this or we'll do that. But I understand the frustration. People think we'll be in a relegation battle. I don't think we will. I think we're, as you said, already, if we can get some of these fit as well, already with what we've got, I think we'll be fine halfway. But if we can go and strengthen now and get the spine strengthened, I think we could still push on. And I'd really like to see us. I mean, I know we've got Forest, haven't we? Going back to 1980, Forest in the cup. And I know that ain't going to be the so-called first team, but I really think that both of us were really frustrated with what happened in the FA Cup last season.
Yeah.
And that could go a long way this year. If we could have, like, just a and we were told last season was a season of transition. Well, we've done that. We've got to move forward a bit now. And if we can get in the top half and have a good cup run, I mean, I think we've reached the quarterfinals a couple of times in the League Cup since '80. Otherwise, it's usually like first or second round and we go out. It'd be really good to have a cup run again in the League Cup and all the FA Cups. Because don't forget as well, that's another way of getting into Europe, isn't it? And still, which is surprises me why so many teams don't tend to take it seriously, because it's an opportunity to get in amongst the big boys again, which clearly is, again, very much part of what Fosun want to do.
I think the club and Nuno and the owners felt the wrath of the fan base after the Southampton game last year. I could not, but I mean, whether the club thought we could genuinely go down at that point, but to rest your main forwards, in a game when potentially you're playing Bournemouth in the quarterfinal or semi-finals of their
quarterfinals.
Yeah, that's outrageously bad. But I mean, as time's getting on, Daz, on that subject of the past, we've got a big game on Sunday. I put a few tweets out last night. Fans are really split on this. So obviously the old boss comes back on Sunday. He's had a great start, beat Man City in his first game. He likes doing that, and Spurs like doing that anyway. But he comes back to Molineux, and the fans are really split. Some fans say they've not had the chance to say goodbye and clap him. Other fans are like, he's gone now. He had his goodbyes at Man United. Me personally, I've sang his name 1,000 times. I've endlessly tweeted and talked about, thank you, that was brilliant so much. For me now, personally, all my energy will be into supporting Wolves and Bruno. I won't be disrespectful to Nuno, but my energy is about Bruno, Wolves moving forward. You don't go to the pub, all right, and keep asking your ex-girlfriend how she is. No, you're with your new girlfriend, and that's it. So, well, I don't know what you, Daz. About you, Daz.
Is Mrs. Leicester watching this?
No.
If you're going out to the pub tonight now, she's not going to be happy.
Working later.
It's Bruno versus Nuno. I think what will happen is, and quite rightly, all the cameras, everyone will be on on the dugout and everything when he walks out. Give him his big 30,000, and he'll wave. Get back in the dugout. Game on. Forget it. And I think that's even, and I think that what other way could it be? I don't think no matter what, once the game kicks off, you're not thinking about who's in the dugout. You're just watching the game, aren't you?
No,
and
there's nothing more he's going to want to love than to come into Wolves, and not for the fans, because he had a good relationship with the fans, but he'll absolutely love to put it at Wolves and the owners. He'll be absolutely bursting. Absolutely. And for me, I'm not saying, I mean, if he comes out and waves, I'll applaud politely. But I'm like, am I about Bruno now? This is Bruno's first game at Molineux.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be about somebody else. This is his first game at Molineux.
Oh, they knew what they were doing when they published that fixture list.
Didn't they just?
They knew exactly what they were doing. Don't come out of a hat.
He's managing our club now.
Yeah, that's what will happen. He'll get a lovely ovation, and then he may even just go in late as well. It depends on what he wants to do, because he doesn't particularly like all that stuff anyway.
What Bruno should do, Daz, is wait behind him and hide behind the door and come out like afterwards to get a bigger one, because this is Bruno's day and about Wolves, but it's certainly something that's split in opinion, and for me it's Bruno's day, not Nuno's day. But
each to their own. But I mean, once the game gets on, you get your focus on, and everybody will be desperate for Wolves to turn up and to get the 3 points. And who knows? I mean, they played very well yesterday. Manchester City didn't, by the way, but they played very well. And it was interesting how it was a breakaway goal as well, which was...
I've seen that before.
Yeah, it was also interesting at the end how he didn't do the whole fist pumping. It was a quick clap, off we go. So I noticed that.
Maybe stop saving for that for after the Wolves game.
Maybe
we shall see. But as we get to almost 43 minutes, we've come to the end of episode 2 of the Wolves.
Is there any first half stoppage time?
We're into 2.5 minutes, and you've been booked for time wasting, Daz.
Not for the first time. I've got a cramp.
Thanks to Daz for joining us, our regular expert on the Wolves Report episode 2. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and you can also follow us now on YouTube as well. Thank you for listening, and thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.